Hi, I'm Noah Martinez, and this is Gavin J Konop,
Yes.
director of Spider-Man Lotus.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for thanking me. This is a quite an equipment rental. What's your major?
I'm an English major.
English major. That's fun. So everyone asks you, out of every major problem with modern comic book movies, what's the biggest? What's the second biggest?
Second biggest. I think the fact that it's so focused on marketability and they're focused on selling toys and merchandise as opposed to telling legitimate stories. And that's not to say there aren't comic book movies out there now that want to tell a story. Like the Batman, of course, is so engrossed in the character and everything, and they want to tell a story. But yeah, I think the biggest problem is that they want to sell toys and merchandise as opposed to telling a story. And you know, there's still stuff out there like the Batman that are against that. But I think generally with the saturation of comic book content, the general focus that they're aiming towards is to sell toys and make money. So I think that's the big problem, is they base their stories around what will sell the most merchandise as opposed to, telling a story.
Right, and I'm not someone who's crazy on like anti-China rhetoric or anything like that, but I do think the trying to market every movie as a global movie is also playing into that. What's your approach to a problem on set?
Problem on set, I think it's all dependent on what the problem is, but I think the most important thing is not taking a side until you have, every perspective. You have to make sure everybody has a fair chance to explain themselves. Because a lot of the time, drama on set has to do with, two people getting into something or something like that. But I mean, in terms of drama, making sure you hear everybody out. In terms of equipment problems, you have to just be able to improvise on the spot and be able to make something happen that will still work out. But it has to be smart and has to be quick. You have to improvise on the spot. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, if it's an equipment problem, being able to improvise and make a solution in a quick amount of time. And
Would you say I have that ability?
Exactly. Yes, you did exactly that. So, without a doubt.
Thank you. How'd you design the Spider-Man costume? What elements of because I was sensing some Ramita, some Ditko there. How did you go about that?
So I've been a big fan of the classic comics for a very long time. Of course, the vintage 60s, 70s, everything like that. So I felt like the Alex Ross art perfectly takes those classic comics and modernizes it and kind of makes it, visible in our modern world. So I went back to those classic designs, John Romita, in particular John Romita Sr., Gil Kane, all those types of people from, Ross Andrew, all those people from the early days. And I'm thinking, how can we take this design, keep it contemporary, and bring it into our world and make it movie quality without taking my own liberties or trying to make it my own, trying to preserve, that classic design. So I took all my inspiration from those comics. I didn't really look towards modern art or anything like that. I love the modern art in the comics and everything, but I think, the smaller eyes, the angrier type looking things, the logo with all four arms facing down. I've always been a fan of that type of stuff. So, I mean, it's my ideal Spider-Man costume. It's been what I've been wanting to see for such a long time.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, so it's everything I wanted to see. So really, I mean, I already had the idea before even making the movie. I was like, this is what I want. Like, it was already in my mind. So I really just had to apply it and work with the suit designers on the texture, the material, everything like that. It was very particular.
If you don't want to answer this question for burning bridges, I totally understand. Who's your least favorite director of the modern era?
My least favorite director? Let me think. I don't know if I have a least favorite director. I think everybody has their own particular thing to bring to the... Joss Whedon, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Justice League.
Right.
And I don't think I'm burning any bridges there.
Don't be a bad person.
Yeah, exactly. Don't
the
be...
lesson.
Yeah, exactly. So if I had to choose one, I would say him, of course. I mean, it's, you have nothing to lose with that.
What's your favorite Phase 4 project?
Favorite Phase 4 so far, or what am I most excited for?
So far.
Okay, so far, I would say probably Loki. I really liked Loki. I thought it was really good. WandaVision could have been really good, but I feel like they just dropped the ball with what it could have been. I think with WandaVision, what I wanted was that, Wanda is dealing with her own trauma, her own struggles. And I think when they introduced Agatha as an external villain is when they lost their footing a little bit. So I think WandaVision could have been my favorite. Didn't live up to what I wished it could have been. But Loki, I think, was consistently great throughout the entire show.
If you could work with one person in the industry, who would it be?
Spike Jonze. I think I could learn so much from him. He's my favorite director ever.
Absolute genius.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've watched his music videos from the 90s and everything, his skate videos, everything like that.
Beastie Boys, Video Days is one of the skate ones. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of him too.
Yeah.
The Buddy Holly Weezer video.
Mm-hmm. And I think what he does so well is he takes concepts that are kind of outlandish and he makes them feel real and tangible and down to earth. Like when he did Where the Wild Things Are, they could very easily have made CGI creatures and they could have just made it all on a computer. But they're fully practical, all of them. So I think, I don't know how to, it's not a candid feeling, but it's a feeling you can't really describe because they're so tangible and real. You can feel that they're there. And when he made the short film I'm Here with the robot Andrew Garfield, could have done a CGI head, which they used VFX on the face, but it still felt real.
Right.
It felt like it was you could grasp it.
And I think there's an emotional realism to something like Where the Wild Things Are too,
Mm-hmm.
or even like Being John Malkovich, which is one of his more funny movies.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say.
Yeah, they all have a grounded, real element to them, and I would love to. I think I could learn so much from him just being around him.
Right.
So I think him, or obviously Sam Raimi, as just a human being. I think he's such a great guy, one of my heroes. So one of those two.
Have you seen a Darkman Sam Raimi movie?
Have I? I don't think I have.
You need to. It's like Universal Monsters meet Looney Tunes meet comics and sort of a.
Yeah, I would have to check it out for sure then.
CGI or practical?
I love practical. I think my least favorite part about shooting Lotus was, the green screen shoots. I just didn't feel in the moment. Like I felt like we just had to get something done. It didn't feel like I was as passionate about doing it as I was about being in Tim Harrison's room with the Spider-Man suit and with Tim Harrison and with all the props we had. It just felt more real, felt more in the moment. And then when you get to this big green screen set, it's like it just doesn't feel as tangible as a practical, obviously. But I don't know. I just don't really like shooting with VFX. It's just not the most fun. I mean, I know we have to do it because it's a superhero movie. You have to have those elements. It's definitely not what I enjoy the most. So,
are there any other franchises that you're into that people might want to know about, like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings?
I love Star Wars. I got into it in middle school. I love the story and the lore, and Darth Vader is one of my favorite characters of all time. I can't wait for Kenobi. So Star Wars is one of them. I just watched Lord of the Rings for the first time this year, and it was just incredible. It felt like Star Wars, but so much more in depth and nuanced. Mm-hmm. In the characters and the story. So I loved those two franchises. Of course, I love DC. I love The Flash. The show, not so much, but the comic books, I love The Flash. I mean, I've been into him for a long, long time. Batman, of course. I mean, a whole lot of DC characters, and I love a lot of Marvel characters. But, I mean, I don't know if there's a franchise I dislike. I mean, Harry Potter's the only one I haven't visited yet. I have to check it out for sure. But generally, I've been a fan of most of the franchises that I've watched.
Thoughts on non-Marvel superhero content? The Boys, Invincible, Zack Snyder, DC.
I love The Boys. I thought it was such a cool deconstruction of superheroes, and it's one of the only ones I can say is truly dark in an effective way. Even like the Snyder movies, they get labeled as dark a lot and depressing. But when you really look at, I'm not the biggest fan of BVS, Batman v Superman, but the ending is one of the most optimistic superhero endings of all time. It's about Batman returning to the light and being redeemed for what he'd done. So I wouldn't say, the Snyder movies are dark and depressing. I would say The Boys is dark and depressing in an effective way.
I think Zack Snyder is allowed to be a little darker, but I think he's still like an optimist, romantic type rather than a cynic, which is, I don't think The Boys is fully rooted in cynicism, but I think there's more of that there.
Yeah, for sure. And Batman generally, the interpretations on him is that if he kills someone, he will never be able to return back to where he was. He'd never be able to go back to the light. But Zack Snyder's interpretation is that if he took a life, he would be able to return back to where he was. So I think with that said, it's very optimistic in how he views Batman, and I think that's a distinction that not many people make, and I think they get the tone confused with the messages and the themes, So I thought Zack Snyder's Justice League was great. I enjoyed it, and BVS has a lot of merit to it, of course, and I respect it so much for trying to really say something important, even if we could have disagreements about the plot or how they chose to execute it. But I respect it more than a lot of comic book movies because they really tried to say something with it.
Right. Like, as much as I enjoyed Shang-Chi in the theater, I feel like Batman v Superman is going to leave me wrestling with more thoughts after.
Right. And I haven't even seen Shang-Chi yet, or Shang-Chi, because I haven't been interested in it. There was nothing about it that interested me. So
that's the problem, is in the interest of like capturing a global market, the trailers are a lot more generic than the movie.
Yeah.
In
fact, well, you can go ahead.
A lot of people complained about the second act, saying it was too slow, but I liked it because there's a lot of character moments in it that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, and I think I actually had a conversation about this the other day about how, the themes and messages of the Marvel movies all share similar components with, they want to apply or appeal to the widest audience possible. So a lot of the time, the themes of the movies are be yourself, embrace yourself, don't think about what the world wants you to be, don't be afraid of who you are. And I think, it's a great theme, of course, but I think at a certain point, it becomes overused and it becomes repetitive.
Right.
You look back to Iron Man 1.
When there's 25 movies.
Mm-hmm. Like, you look back to Iron Man 1, it's about egotism, alcoholism, everything like that. And it's about overcoming selfishness and arrogance. And it's not about embracing who you are, it's about changing yourself. So you look at early Marvel, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, and you compare it to later Marvel, what we are now. It looks like, you can really see that they've embraced appealing to wider audiences. They've tried to appeal, because everybody can relate to wanting to be themselves and wanting to embrace who they are. So it's a theme that anybody can relate to. I can relate to it. I think anyone can. But it's just you lose. I think sometimes to make a good movie, you have to sometimes be exclusive with a theme.
And I think you can still do a good movie about that. Like, Star Wars is very much one of those movies. Grow into who you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
The original, New Hope. But I feel like after 25 movies, there's as many Marvel movies, if I'm not mistaken, right now as there are James Bond movies.
Yeah.
And James Bond movies have been coming out since 1963.
Yeah. It's crazy. And they're so, you gotta respect them for being so successful and knowing exactly how to get an audience.
Right. Like, Kevin Feige understands comics well enough to understand how to do a long-running medium like this.
And he knows what he's doing. There's no denying that at all. So you have to respect them for what they do. It's just, I wish that we could have more exclusive themes. Like Daredevil, of course, is about, you have Catholicism and you have religion. Not everybody's going to relate to that.
Right.
But it's more exclusive, it's more specific. So I respect it a lot more.
I would ask you about your thoughts on the season finale because I saw in your story, but that could be a whole podcast episode.
Could.
Maybe we'll record that on campus some other day. Is Warden Wayne going to be in No Way Home?
I can't confirm that or deny it, unfortunately.
I'm cutting that part out.
Yeah, just leave the other part in.
If you could pick any film composer, who would you choose?
Oh, man. I love John Paisano. Rachel Portman's really good. She did Cider House Rules, one of my favorites. Danny Elfman, of course. Edward Scissorhands, absolutely beautiful score. But I think John Paisano would be such a great composer to work with. I love his style of music. It feels like a mix of, I love Danny Elfman and I love John Powell. He did How to Train Your Dragon. He did Kung Fu Panda. But I think John Paisano is the perfect mix of them two. And I would love to work with him for sure.
What's your favorite non-Spider-Man video game?
Oh, Little Big Planet 2, for sure. I grew up on that game. It was my entire life.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, dude. It ignited my creativity and what I want to do.
Best PSP game after Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, for sure.
How does it feel to go across the country in the middle of a pandemic to film a movie? Like, how do you even...
Yeah.
What?
It was crazy. And And we were going to film all of it where I live in LA. They were going to fly here. The decision to go to Arkansas and New York and fly around everywhere was very late in the game when we saw that the funding had raised and we were able to go to New York and get a location like that. And you know, it feels more natural that they are in. You know, you see Harry Osborn in Times Square in the trailer, in the teaser trailer, and you see MJ on top of a building with the skyline in the background. It felt like this was really taking place in New York as opposed to shooting in LA and saying it to New York.
Right.
You know?
I've done some research, and if I'm not mistaken, Amazing Spider-Man 2 and Lotus are the only Spider-Man movies filmed in New York.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think, TASM 2 feels the most like they are in New York, which, you know, that makes sense.
Yeah. Writing or directing?
Man, it's tough because writing, I love writing, bringing everything together and creating it. But I think directing is much more satisfying because you watch what you'd created come to life, and you're in charge of so much, and you're really you have a canvas and you're painting it exactly how you want it, and you have everybody helping you out. You know, you have people on set doing what you'd like and helping you out in the best way, and it feels very humbling to have so many people, you know, wanting to agree with your vision and wanting to bring it out in the best way possible. So I think directing is a lot more rewarding and writing is a lot more fun.
Great answer. Why UC Riverside?
My mom actually went here as an English major, and she is one of the smartest people I know, most intelligent, well-rounded. She's taught me so much of what I know. So coming here, I wanted to, you know, become like her in many ways and understand things like how she understands them, and she's able to illustrate things in such comprehensive ways that I wish I could. So I'm really here to just strengthen how I think and change how I see writing and how I change how I see storytelling in general. And because my mom is why I'm here.
What advice would you give to any first-time directors out there?
I would say you have to know that you're not going to be prepared. You're not going to be ready because it's, you know, you're never going to be ready going into making a movie. You know, there's so much that you can't predict that will happen. You know, so much happened that I couldn't have possibly thought of in advance. So before going into a project, don't think you already know what's going to happen because you don't.
Right.
You know, everything's going to, you know, you're going to forget equipment or someone's going to spark drama or some people aren't going to get along as well as you think. So just be ready for every problem and don't wait until you are ready or you feel ready because you're never going to feel ready. You know, you just have to go do it. And that's the biggest thing.
What's your favorite Muppet?
Favorite Muppet? Probably Kermit, if I'm being honest.
No, I mean, it's a little bit of a basic choice, but it's a good one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on any other fan films, like Spider-Man Every Hour, Amazing Spider-Man 3? I know, I think his name is Derek L. Woods. He's making it.
I met him on the drive to New York. We stopped down in, where was it? I forgot where we stopped, but we stopped at a gas station and met up with him. It was super cool. And Jeremy, of course, I met up with. He's doing Every Hour.
Yeah.
And man, I love Jeremy. He's such a smart guy, and we agree on so much. You know, our film taste is so similar. And I've had such a great time talking to him and working with him, and being in New York with him was such a blast because they're such great people. You know, Eunice, Jeremy, Scott, you know, Mark, all of them, Andres, they're all so cool. And I'm super excited for Every Hour. You know, I think they're doing a great job, and I'm excited for Amazing Spider-Man 3. You know, Derek's a great friend. So just got to support everybody.
Yeah, and also Spider-Man 4 and Spider-Man and the Monsters of Manhattan. A lot of them coming out right now.
And I've met Bryn, I met Brandon. They're good friends of mine. So, you know, I'm super excited for what they have coming for sure.
Do you have any announcements you'd like to make here? Any other projects that people might want to know about or be interested in?
For now, I don't have any. My next project isn't ready to announce yet. It's not developed enough. But depending on when this posts, you know, the trailer for Lotus, the full trailer, will be in late October. Expect October 20th to October 30th. And it'll be much longer than you think, you know, over 2 minutes 30.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be super cool. I'm excited. Pizza time.
Thank you.
Dude, you're like the guy, though. You're like, oh, yeah, he's been making movies ever since he was in middle school.
I've been making movies like that too.
No, but he looks like the guy. You're just like the other guy.
You should
No, he
watch
looks like
the
the guy
Flex
too.
Boys. One
Flex
of
Boys?